So, welcome back to Study Chess with me. I would like to apologize for the absence in videos in this particular series. This was due to some accumulated stress pains I had begun to accumulate in this particular part of my arm due to all of the video editing I had been doing. I don't want to reduce the number of videos because of that, so I was forced to try to find a solution, and the solution I found was to acquire a new mouse, this Logitech Lift. It's an ergometric mouse. You hold it like this. It's quite nice, pretty comfortable. It takes a little time to get used to, but overall, it seems to have solved the problem. At least I hope so. And before I go on to the actual study part, which, by the way, will be Dvoretsky's Endgame Manual, I would like to make a small announcement. I will be returning to competition in about 2 weeks' time, finally. And according to the database, this is actually my first official tournament since 2008. Yeah, really. I hadn't realized it was that long. So 16 years. And that means that my rating of 2149 probably is even less valid than I had previously thought. We'll find out. In any case, it will be fun to go back to competition. I have zero expectations, of course, because it's way too early to build any kind. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun and get rid of some of my tournament rust. So I will tell you how that goes. I will not be doing daily videos as, let's say, my colleague, much more successful colleague, Levy Rosman, Gotham Chess, who, while he does his tournaments, manages to produce videos every single day and every round. It's not that it's impossible. It's just that I feel that that's not going to be the most interesting way to do this for you because I'm not that strong. And also because I think that I would be burning a ton of energy between rounds doing that kind of work. It's going to be 9 rounds in this period of 7 days, so 2 double round days. I will be trying to maximize my recovery and rest to give myself the best chance to do something semi interesting. And we'll tell you about the results after it's done. That said, let's get to the study. Dvoretsky. Okay, so this is the last sample lesson of the chapter on corresponding squares, opposition. And after that, we'll be going straight into the exercises. Now, I have already done the exercises previously some time ago. I'm talking years. And, well, if memory helps me, great. But regardless of whether or not remember aspects of it, much less the solution, I will be nevertheless going through with it to try to reproduce the entire process of calculation and visualization in my mind, since the idea, of course, is to train the brain so that we can move forward. So, in any case, let's get on with the lesson. This is from Linares, 1992, and White's rook is tied to the defense of the pawn at g3, and it's black to move. He played rook f5. Black would have won easily. Apparently, this was a mistake. If instead of rook f5, he had played rook a3. I will look at that in an instant. Let's first see what happened when he played rook f5 and what went wrong. So rook f5, king e4. Now, you don't need to be a genius to see that rook takes f5, king takes f5, and of course the king will run to pick up g3 and h4, and it's an easy win. So this is kind of forced since the rook is locked in. So black forced this situation and the sequence as well. It's unclear whether Dvoretsky simply played this because he didn't see the win and therefore just went for this because he figured one way of drawing is as good as another, and he just wanted to end the game. In any case, takes g5, h takes g5. White has the opposition, but Dvoretsky had counted on f6, g takes f6, king takes f6, king f4, g5 check. So apparently there was an oversight because black replied king f3. And here's probably the move that he hadn't really expected. He played king f7. Maybe he was hoping for the short opposition. No. Well, whatever. In any case, king f7 is forced. It's a distant opposition. King f5 immediately would actually lead to a draw as well because of g4 check, h takes g4, king g3. And as soon as black's king goes to the e file, white's king immediately takes the opposition. So the winning method, not rook f5, of course, was rook a3, exclamation point, to prevent the white king from approaching the pawns. Okay, so king e4, f5 check, exclamation point, followed by king f6 and wins. That's kind of cute, actually. So just pointing it out, if king f4 by white, I mean, we see that the white rook is trapped, but it leads to a funny little zugzwang. After king f4, king f6, white has to give up material because the king is actually trapped. So you either give up the rook, which not really, or you play g4, which doesn't actually do anything to improve your situation. Damn. Okay. So on to the exercises. Okay, so this is the first exercise of corresponding squares. And just so you can understand how he does it, being the chess-based version of Dvoretsky's famous work, it's organized in the following manner, because of course it's going to be a little bit different than the book, at least for the presentation of exercises. In this particular case, what they do is they have multiple entries of the same thing. So the first one will say, for example, exercise, as it does here, and it has the position. It says solve for black to move, press F10 to see the solution, which actually is F11, which will go to the next game. And the next game will be identical to this one, but with the entire solution presented in the notation, which right here is completely blank except for the text that I read. So black to move, and well, you have to assume that it's black to move to win, because black to move to draw wouldn't be um, very mysterious. Maybe I'm wrong. In any case, black to move. It isn't actually memory of solving it or looking at the solution some couple of years ago that gave me the solution. And actually, black needs to find the path to draw. It's because the solution moving forward, not in this particular position, is actually a mirror image of one of the sample lessons that he gave. And that much I do remember from not so long ago, October 30th, according to the video date. So I will. Well, actually, I can move the solution here. So I'll do that here because I can actually move the pieces without having to worry about affecting the solution or anything. I'll rattle it off first because I did it all by head. So to demonstrate, let's see the problems here very quickly. Obviously, king a5, king b3, or king a3, doesn't matter much. King a6, king b4, king a7 or b7, king takes b5, and yeah, it's a problem because it's similar to the solution, but you're giving all of the tempi with the white pawns on c and a to gain the opposition no matter what black does to try to save it. So you kind of have to lock him into the saving position. And that goes, and here I do actually have a recollection. Um, b4 by black, c4, I'll move the pieces after, b3, a3, king a5, king takes b3, king a6, king b4, king a7. Now if king b5, king b7, c4, I mean a4, pardon, king a7, not king c7, because then, unless I'm mistaken here, white can outflank you by going around. But if you're stuck on the a file, then there's no outflanking to be done. And therefore, king a7, king a6, king c6, king a6, king c7, king a7, king c8, king a8. There's no outflanking possible. And the biggest problem, of course, is that the a pawn, being what it is a draw as long as the king is able to cover the promotion square. So now I'll show it to you. So b4, c4, b3, a3, locked in, so forced. And needless to say, of course, b5, c5, and yeah, that's just a nuclear disaster. So king a5, king takes b3, king a6, kind of forced, king b4, king a7. And just to be clear, if a4 immediately, king b8. Not a big deal. Oh, and what happens if a5? Well, then you don't take, because that would be, of course, a disaster. Might be a problem, let's say. You can actually just play king b7. It's not a big deal. Anyway, so just play a4. So instead of king a4, you can play king b5. a4, king a7, king c6, king a6, king c7. If you advance the c pawn, it's not really helping. You cannot, of course, come to a5 because you will get outflanked. King a5, king b7, and thank you very much for the game. So king here, king here, king here. Okay. So next, it's going to ask me to save. No, thank you. And now I'm reading the solution to you. This already has the full solution. b4, c4, b3. And he does add a couple of lines worth mentioning. He says that king a5 is catastrophic because of king b3, king a6, king takes b4, king a7, king b5, king b7, a3. Like I said, multiple tempi. That's why b3 is so important, because it doesn't give white the option of either a4 or a3 to choose how many tempi he wants to gain for the opposition. So b3, a3. This is the solution. King takes b3, king a6, king b4, king a7. Okay. King b5, king b7. Here, white has only one spare tempo, while in the line king a5, he had two. a4, King c7. Oh dear. Screwed up. King e6. Well, it's the same idea, except that apparently, and this is where I screwed up. Whoops. King a7. He says a5. Doofus. You got it backwards. Then, of course, white gets the opposition. And a5, pawn takes, king takes, king c6. And yeah, there will be no opposition one here. Okay. Next one. Okay, so this is another study by Weenink or Weenink. Henri, 1924. White to move. Let's pay a little more attention this time. Right. I think I have the solution. I believe it's a trick outflanking. And my solution here is king e4, king g4, kind of forced. King e5. No, not, sorry, not king e5 because then king g5. And then if you go up, black just follows suit. And I counted the tempi, and if you make a run for the b pawn, then black is fine getting your g pawn. So king e4, king g4. Thinking that, of course, if I play king e5, king g5, but instead I play king d5 as if I'm going to run for the b pawn. And black's only option, of course, is to play king g3, attacking the white pawn. And then you come back. King e5, not king e4, because otherwise you repeat. Black cannot afford to take the g pawn because if he's stuck behind, then yeah, it's game over. So king g4. And now you have the possibility to outflank. So king f6. And yeah, it's just. So I'll just illustrate this here. King e4, king g4, not king e5. Yeah, the stupid thing is showing me its recommendations. I apologize. I have to turn that off. I didn't pay attention to that, but it didn't affect me because I hadn't moved the pieces yet. So, but I'll turn off the hints. I had turned it off in chess base 17. This is chess base 18. And yeah, it's one of those basic setup things that I usually turn off, and I haven't done it yet. So obviously, if we go up, then it's a draw, or at least you're not making progress. Let's put it that way. You can still actually force the positions back to the winning starting one. So king g4, king d5, as if you were going to make a run for it. King e3 is kind of forced. King e5. Now you kind of have to come back up because I can grab the black pawn and you'll never get past me. So king g4, king f6, and I believe that's how you outflank him. So yeah, not a lot of options, of course. If king h4 or king h5, just king f5. So we'll just play. And it's game over. Okay. So see the solution. Well, he had a more, let's say, vigorous defense, which I didn't see, but it doesn't actually change what I said. It's just that I didn't consider a different line for black to try to force you to calculate something else. Okay, so I'll show you what it is. King e4, king g4. How should white continue? If he managed to pass the pawn to his opponent, he could pass the move, sorry, to his opponent. He could force a favorable pawn exchange on the king side. And he doesn't actually, it's weird because he doesn't actually show the moves on the board. He writes them in the text. So he says king g5. Yeah, but it's what I said. King g5, king e5, king g4, king f6. We'd be able to do that. Oh, he's illustrating if you could take the tempo. So king d5. It says king e5 is useless because of king g5, which is what I said. King d5. And he says king h5. King f5, king d4. And black loses the opposition. King h5. Doesn't actually mention king g3. I have to assume that it was self-evident to him and didn't bother putting it. But my solution should be sound. Nevertheless, after king h5, you have to come up with the next move, and, well, it's too late now. I have the solution right in front of me. So the move for white is king c6. And what can black do now? To maintain the opposition, king g6 is required, but the king is too far away from the g2 pawn, and then so king takes b5 would win. Otherwise, white seizes his coveted opposition and then transforms the distant opposition into the close one by standard means, otherwise known as outflanking. He points out that king c5 immediately would have been a major mistake. Looks the same, but it's not. And that's interesting, actually. After king c5, king g5, black still maintains the opposition, while a capture of the pawn just leads to a draw. So king takes b5, king g4, king c5, king g3, king b5, e6, f3, etc. Okay. So what's the difference here? Difference here is now king g5, king c5. Oh, we're coming back. Oh, nice. I wish I had calculated this one. It's very pretty. So king c5, distant opposition, king g4, and no, we're not actually going to grab that b pawn, which, as we know, leads to nothing. Instead, it's king d6, which was the original idea I had, but this one's prettier. It's more elaborate. King h5, king d5, distant opposition, king e6, king g5, king e5, king g4, king f6, and yeah, we transpose. King g3, king f5. Nice. Very nice. I hadn't even looked at king c6, king c5. Oh well. Okay, so it's white to move. And I'm going to assume white to move to win. Regardless, let's take a look at it. Okay, so yeah, there's memory that's kicking in here. Ideas, at the very least, to guide me towards the solution. In this particular case, but I believe that I actually solved this one on my own the first time around. So the solution is king g3. Uh, Rook takes f2 with the idea, of course, of king takes f2, bishop e6. Then I play rook h5 check, removing the possibility. And king g6, attacking the rook. Rook d5, attacking the bishop. Bishop b6. Rook d6 check. King f5. Rook takes b6. And here's the little astuce, as we say in French. Rook takes b6, not a takes b6. Rook takes f3. And here's the real asterisk: is not king takes. If king takes, pawn takes, he has the opposition. So after king takes f3 check, you play king g2. Remember, the king is on f5. And now a takes b6, because otherwise, what's the point? It's an easy draw after that. A takes b6. Now king takes f3, and white has the opposition. And I'll show this on the board. Needless to say, if you play king takes g2, you're forced, because then it's all an under check and you're just screwed. So I forgot to turn that off. Okay. It's not going to happen again. Oh my goodness. Distraction. Albert. So rook takes f2. Rook takes f5. King g6. Because if the king just moves around, then king takes rook. And what have you gotten? Rook takes d5, attacking the bishop. Bishop b6, protecting the rook. Rook d6, king f5. Rook takes b6. Rook here. King g2. Pawn takes, and we get the opposition. It's pretty. No arguments there. And do you want to save? No, you can't see this, but that's what it's asking me here. So here's the solution. King g3. No surprise. Sorry. Bishop b6. Ah, it does it in a different order. Doesn't matter much. King g6. Oh no, he's actually saying that king g1 would be a mistake because of rook h5, rook f2, rook takes f2, rook takes f2, a5, and you take advantage of the fact that you're still pinned, so he can run it a little faster than you. King f1, and now you take. Okay. So this right move is king g3, and he points out that bishop b6 can be met by knight d3. Okay, rook takes f2, rook takes h5, rook h5, king g6, rook f5, bishop b6, rook d6, king f5, rook takes, king g2, double exclamation point, but we had seen that. A takes b6, king takes f3, and due to the pretty tempo loss on move 6, king g2, white has seized the opposition. Okay. Now this is still part of the refresher, meaning that I am returning to parts of Dvoretsky's work, which I hadn't really advanced much anyway, to make sure that I have it all fresh and going forward, and as opposed to saying I've already gone through those pages 2 years ago and I don't remember anything and I want to move on, because it's not about finishing books, it's about learning. So this is an endgame study by Nikolai Grigoriev from 1933. And Grigoriev is one of the all-time great endgame study composers. In today's day and age, with endgame table bases and engines of superhuman strength, they might look just quaint because they'll be solved either instantly or in a fraction of a second. But suffice it to say that we are neither table bases or engines. So the difficulty for us mere mortals remains the same as it was for the mortals of 1933 when this particular study was published. Now, you may have noticed that my background and lighting has changed somewhat, and so I will cut to the chase. I had to run an errand, which should not merit really any commentary, but I'm getting there. The problem is that I came back, did the lighting, studied the position, and I failed it. And I also failed to start the recording. Oh boy. Oh goodness. That was ridiculous. So yeah. So I'm sorry, I won't. There won't be this long thinking time because I didn't record it. Suffice it to say that I spent a good half an hour on the position. I found many different lines. It was very interesting, including one of the key lines that didn't work, and I completely had a blind spot, a ridiculous blind spot to the solution's move, even in spite of understanding the overall theme and what was required. Uh, anyway, so know that I'm not going to sit there pretending that I solved it, that I'm a genius, and just took me seconds. My gosh, Albert, you're amazing. Really not. It's a beautiful position. It's fairly simple, and like a lot of these studies in Dvoretsky's work, they all seem to come with key elements that reflect some of the lessons that he has given. And what I mean by that, I don't just mean like this is corresponding squares or opposition, because of course that's obvious, but rather elements of the solution are mirrored in some of the exercises that he showed, which is kind of fascinating. And many of these tend to be quite beautiful as well. So, as a rule, like a very good school teacher, actually, if you paid close attention to the exercises and lessons, the exercises already come with their own hints and clues, regardless of their difficulty. At least so far. I can't speak for the entire work. So I will skip to the chase. In this particular exercise, I'll spend some time first um, with distant opposition because I thought maybe that was the idea. So I started playing ideas like King A4 and whatnot, and yeah, that's a waste of time. Naturally, of course, I then went for the more forward solution, and I did understand one of the key ideas. I just completely flubbed the key maneuver, let's put it that way, to gain the tempo. So King A6, I saw. Uh, King B8, G3, gaining the tempo. All that was understood. King A8, B6, and King B8. And here I understood, of course, that this much I had actually seen. B7 I understood that didn't work because of C5. You have to chase it. There's nothing else to do. King B5, King B7, King C5, King C7, King E. Sorry, King D5. And here's the little trick, which I had actually understood. F4, very key point because otherwise you're just going to lose. I mean, the king will come in and grab the pawn, and that's it. But this little trick actually saves the game because now black has the opposition, but with no free tempo because the pawn isn't doing anything. You can't save the pawn anyway. So king here, king f7, and yeah, it's a draw. Now, so this part I had understood, and I understood even the idea of f4. And for some reason, a complete brain fart, for lack of a better word, um, blinded me to the really obvious, it's not difficult, so just completely systematically fell blind to this. The solution here is king b5. Oh boy. And here, of course, now if after g3, after king here, there is no trick because I actually have the opposition. That's the whole point of king b5. And there's really no way to get around this. For example, if you don't take on b6, then any king move, let's say king b7 or king c8, it doesn't matter at all. King here, here. And now the f4 won't serve any purpose because white has the opposition. So giving up the pawn isn't going to change a thing. So king c5, king here. And you can try this, but as you'll see, it doesn't make a difference. And you notice this time, white has the opposition. So white is winning. Oh boy. Well, in any case, You were spared also of having to watch me bang my head, grip my ears or side of my head, moan, "Oh my gosh, how did I not see that? Such an obvious move so early in the line." They all came out of my mouth. Ja, radio man est. To err is human. Ah, dear. Anyway, so regardless, it was a productive and good end to most of the refresher. I think I still have a couple of exercises left in this chapter, but I'm going to wrap it up here. And suffice it to say, thank you for joining me in this study chess with me session on the endgame. I will be returning it to. I will be returning to it soon. And yeah, talk to you soon. Bye bye.